Okay, so we have a new game. He min raises to 5 flat to queen 9 standard. He checks back the flop, and once he checks back the flop here, he's defined his range as being weak showdown value or middling hands like weak 7x, a lot of 4x. I believe he's the kind of player he'll see bet 90% plus of his queens, and if he is going to check back, he'll check back weak queens. He's never checking back flush draws. I don't think he's checking back backdoor flush draws. So we have a lot of flush draws here. Backdoor. We have a lot of flush draws here with the spades and the clubs. We have some straight draws with 5x, and we have 2 pair in our range with queen 7, 7-4, 7-6, queen 6, queen 4, and we have a lot more queen x than him. So I think this is a good spot to overbet the turn and jam rivers, because you're putting him in a polar versus bluff catcher situation. Because he's defined his range once he checks back to flop as being bluff catchers. Because we know that he's going to see bet a lot of his stronger holdings. So we choose to overbet here. The only hands that he would have hit on the turn that give him nutted holdings would be 7-6 and 4-6. Those are the only hands that he would check back the flop with that are going to make strong value on the turn. So we get called here, and when he calls here, I'm expecting him to have like a 7, like handling Jack 7 or 10-7. 7, maybe not Jack 7. He'd probably see bet Jack 7. So he might have like 7-5. He probably would still call a 7-6, or he should be, to keep it in his range, as his only traps. He's going to get more value like that. But for the most part, his range is middling holdings, like a 7, maybe a weak queen. And when the jack hits the river, it's a pretty big brick. We're gonna have a lot of missed draws here, because we would be overbetting the turn with flush draws and 5s and straight draws, and this doesn't complete any of them. So we're gonna have to shut down with a lot of our draws that miss, because we just have too many. And we should also be jamming this kind of hand for value here. It doesn't change too much. I said Jack 7 might be in his range, but I really expect him probably to c-bet that, because he's gonna. It's just gonna be a little bit too strong of a second pair to not c-bet the flop. So his range is mostly 7s and 4s here, and so we jam for value. And you would also jam some of your missed flush draws too. So you'd have to figure out how many missed flush draws you could jam here. It's about a pot size bet, so you can have 33% bluffs or so. So you're going to have to shut down with a lot of them. The 10-2 is just a limp. He checks back, and we bet the flop. And he's been pretty tight in limp pot, so barreling turns isn't that great. That being said, the ace is a pretty good card, because we have it in our range. Not very often, like we are going to check back the flop a lot with it, but he doesn't have it at all, so it's a card that helps us. So I think we could continue barreling here. We choose a check back, which is okay, but I prefer a barrel. And when the queen hits the river, and he's checked to us 3 times now, he's really defined his range as missed draws, 5x, 7x, and just weaker holdings. So you could turn your hand into a bluff here, and if you are going to turn your hand into a bluff here, you should be overbetting like 100 into 90 or 120 into 90. You have queen x that you can also overbet with here. And you also have 2 pair that you might have shut down the turn with, like queen 5 would be your 2 pair holding probably that you would have shut down the turn. Queen 7, you probably still barrel the turn, but you might have that in your hand too, your range too. That being said, you're gonna have a lot of air on the river too, so you can't be doing it all the time you have air here, but you should be doing it some of the time. we limp the 10-4, fold to the ISO. And with the King Jack here, I actually chose to not ISO non-all-in, mainly because we know that his limping range is really weak. He's just folding a ton to the ISO non-all-in and folding to the shove. And we also know that he's limping weak pairs, so like 5s and down, and ace-x, weak ace-x, and he's jamming it. So when we ISO the King Jack and get jammed on, we actually have to fold against that range. We'd be better off calling with like 9-8 suited and hands like that. So I actually chose to check back and chose to ISO more as a bluff against him, just because I was getting so many folds pre. And playing like King Jack in the limp pot post isn't that bad, because it's nice to have some strong hands in your range post, and we know that his range is really weak, so we can continue a lot. And we check raise that bluff. And King 10 here at 10 big blinds, it's just an open shove. He's not ISOing enough for us to be incentivized to limp it. And Queen 6 at 9 big blinds deep. This is really close. We know that his limping range is really weak. So maybe exploitively you could hero fold, but it's really close. And I chose the call here. And he showed up with ace king. Okay, last second go. So we limp the queen 10. I think min raising is actually better, given reads that he's not 3-bet shoving a lot. So min raising is going to be a bit better. And we chose to see bet this flop, but it's also close to a check back as well. Either way, it doesn't matter, I don't think. We fold the 9-2, min raise. Limp the jack 5. Again, it's close to a check back because we have some high card value, but c-betting is good against him because he's just folding way too much. I think a non-all-in 3-bet with a 6-4 off is good here. He's folding around 40% of the time, just under, and he's also folding too much to the c-bet. 36% doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're only betting 60 into 180 chip pot, it's actually quite a bit. So non-all-in 3-betting here is good, and for sizing, you're going to want to use 90 instead of 100 because he's mostly fit or fold where he's 4-betting too much, so we want to bluff for cheaper. And I don't think you have to always non-all-in 3-bet this hand, and I think flatting it is actually okay too, but you should be playing it. We limp the jack 10. Again, I think min raising is a bit better against this player. And we see that value. And we should be continuing here with the 2 overcards and the backdoor flush draw. And the turn is a pretty clear fold. We know he's tight on turns and we don't have much. We limp the ace jack, 15 big blinds deep. Min raising is also good for the same reasons that we talked about earlier. He's just 3-bet shoving too much. And we're just going to choose to check back this flop and get to showdown. You could arguably turn your hand into a bluff here, but you have worse hands to turn into a bluff on the turn here, so yeah, just check back. And we just check. Same thing, we limp. He ISOs, and we just jam over the ISO. Pretty standard. And the 6-8 is just a Nash call. So, Queen 6 is just going to be open jam here. If you had Queen 6 off, you could consider limping it. But weak offsuit Queen X you should be limping too. limping instead, like queen 4, queen 3, queen 2. And we just call king 5 to smash call. Thanks for watching, guys.